I'm exhausted.
Politics. I couldn't give a shit. Politics, I don't care. I just care about paedophiles and child rapists.
All I want to say is shame on anyone who promotes these crappy conspiracies. You were literally tearing families apart. You sucked my wife down the rabbit hole at a vulnerable time in her life. I tried to pull her out, but it has only led to countless nights of arguing QAnon, vaccines, and baseless COVID claims. The kids hear it too. This crap has turned the wonderful, loving woman I fell in love with 15 years ago into a miserable person that hates the world. I'm exhausted.
It's not about the politics. It's about the children.
I don't like politicians.
I lost my parents to it, and that hurts.
My spouse. My parents are important to me, but my spouse is the center of my world. I'd be so lost and sad and angry.
I'm very sorry you're going through this. Internet hug.
Trump's not a politician.
He was a businessman, so... But at the end of the day, anyone in politics, I've always believed they've got a hidden agenda.
She told me I needed to open my mind and do my homework. I realized it was pointless after that.
We are definitely living in a new world order now.
Now, definitely, like 100%. Like, not even at the start of a new world order, it's already happened.
We're living in a police state now, so just letting you know.
This is going to be a long post. I'm dealing with over a decade of conspiracy obsessions in my family.
It's only me and one other person that I've seen on Facebook exposing these cunts.
These dirty, demonic, Freemason little wankers. Sorry, mind my French, they fucking are.
I was already in a bad place mentally, and I stumbled right into the conspiracy rabbit hole with my dad.
We went to some really dark places, and I read some things that now I wish that I could forget. It was an obsession because it took me away from all of the pain that I was feeling at the time. I'll admit we spiraled pretty badly. Reptilians, the Greys, occult symbolism, paedophilia everywhere and in everything, ritual sacrifice, harp, vaccines, and so on and so on.
It's my mum and I don't know what to do. She's buying gold. I tried to explain that if you adjust for inflation, the value of gold has only gone up 0.8% since 1974.
If you haven't heard
That's not a good
after
investment.
these names are out there,
She explained that it's to
then
have
we
in case
better
our
cause
monetary
a
and currency
fucking
system
uproar
collapses.
because my kids need
I tried to
me.
explain that useful
Dad
things would be
lives
more
in his own
valuable.
little
You know, like
extremist
she
world
makes
instead.
fantastic bread.
He has untreated
People that want
mental
that things
health
actually
issues
got that
he refuses to
bad.
get
They
help
can't eat
because
gold.
He doesn't trust
Still,
doctors.
no avail.
He thinks that therapy will somehow be used against him by the evil people in power.
This belief was hammered into my head for such a long time. I desperately needed help, but I was so afraid to reach out because my dad had demonized it so much. It wasn't until I almost took my own life that I finally woke up and got the help that I needed.
I started therapy last summer.
The only time in my life
Dad
I
still
ever
doesn't know that
wanted
I
to
take
do was
medication
like,
for it because
you know, when they could call the election.
I'm not comfortable enough to
Child
try.
trafficking for sex,
What stood out was there were
adrenochrome,
several different
organs,
ads, all
etc.
singing
is
the praises of
massive.
gold and how
I've
you should
researched
buy
it for
gold
2.5
through
years,
them.
and
I mean, it
it's
was
so
quite
big.
surreal and disgusting.
Most people can't comprehend it, or even accept it.
I was struck by
If you
how
try and
weirdly
tell them
blue
about it,
everyone's
that's
eyes
not
were.
Taken such a huge toll on my mental health.
I'm struggling to shake off the insanity that was put inside my head. I want my family back, but now I can't force it, and that guts me.
These satanic filth are the top families of the world.
QAnon robbed me of the man I love.
Rothschilds, etc. Call them what you will, the Illuminati, Cabal, Freemasons, Jesuits,
It
Bilderberg,
began with harmless things, I
Knights
suppose,
Templar.
like
For hundreds
questioning
of
the
years,
Bilderberg
they've
Group, doubting
penetrated
the
and run
moon landing,
every
going on
aspect
the
of government.
These are all
Big
linked, by
tech,
the way.
law,
All under the free
politics,
and
humanitarian,
free
media,
and
support,
they use
entertainment,
everything
etc.
brainwashed us by being more
Okay.
woke, i.e. showing interracial relationships. But then this snowballed into this being Jewish propaganda to rid Europe of the superior white race.
There are just some people in this world who are
He's
not
Asian,
good for
by
your
the way.
well-being.
By doing this, they can cover up and get away with most of the heinous crimes. Satanic rituals, adrenochrome harvesting, child hunting. Oh, yes, they hunt
Immigration reform.
and rape
Jews
and
attempts
kill
to
them.
destroy the white race and big black dicks
Google
in
it.
porn.
It's true.
Jews
The Belgians,
white
Dutch,
women,
English or family,
black
even
men,
a
They've got
you
COVID.
know, destroy white
What the
lineage.
fuck?
That's why porn platforms are owned by Jews.
Damn, what did we do to him?
I was an atheist for 43 years until I discovered the
equals
truth.
the Jews.
Now I'm friends with God
In
again.
real life. We're not exotic beasts. You can't just go and talk to one.
Please, just do your own research. There's a lot of misinformation.
Next thing I knew,
Pizzagate
Obama's
is
a pedophile,
real.
Holocaust denial, climate change denial, Seth Rich was murdered, and of course this QAnon bullshit. I mean, I had avoided discussing politics because it always led to him bringing up these insane theories.
Most importantly, spread the word. You'll not get through to all
I
of it, but
finally
at least
got
you
to him
tried.
and told him how those theories had been repeatedly debunked. He said that if you can't see it, then you're lost. He now refuses to eat with me because he said, I don't share food with people who support pedophiles. That was the last day we ever had a conversation.
You've got to get angry. You've got to shake off that sleepy air of compliance. You've
He
got to
now
listen to the voice
refuses
inside
to
of you
agree
saying,
correctly.
this
He
doesn't
withholds
add up.
sex and affection as punishment. I mean, we still live together, but I've lost him.
Exhausted.
My aunt, who was ultra QAnon, she
shot herself earlier today. She left a note saying that she was terrified that the cabal was coming for her and her kids because of Trump's loss. I swear to God, if I ever see Jim Watkins, I will tear him apart with my bare hands.
How many more people can they hurt like this?
The most frustrating part is that we aren't even Americans.
Edit 1. Thank you for all of your kind words. She was a good person. She got sucked into this shit and it warped her.
Do you want your life back? Do you want the truth? Do you want to be able to embrace your loved ones again, work, not live in the pockets of a government who have done nothing for you? Do you want the science investigated, the liars held to rights, the freedom of speech and movement that you were born with? Then for God's sake, get moving. Join history as it happens. Rise up!
Edit 2.
Sorry I might have missed certain posts. It's all been such a deluge of calls. My cousin and I have been on the phone for the past half an hour just trying to talk everything over. But I really appreciate the well wishes. Thank you.
Stay in the light. Peace and love.
Final edit. I'm sorry, but the family's decided not to speak to the press on this matter. Thank you for respecting our privacy.
I first started getting into QAnon at the beginning of this year. I finished uni early, so I had a lot of spare time on my hands. I spent a lot of time on the internet. I remember coming across a thread accusing Tom Hanks of being a paedophile. I was confused, so I decided to search it up. And this is before Google had taken any of this stuff down, by the way. They have now. Kept reading into it, finding new articles and information. It happened really quickly. You know, a lot of people, when they get into QAnon, they kind of want it to be true. It's like a game to them. It's something fun, something interesting, something out of the ordinary. It's kind of like a secret that only they know about. But I was the opposite. It terrified me, and I didn't want it to be true. It completely takes over your personality. Any self-identity that you had, it's destroyed by QAnon. I mean, it becomes who you are.
The WikiLeaks emails were, I guess, my real induction into Pizzagate and QAnon. There's this documentary. This might be relevant. It's quite famous, and it's called Out of Shadows. You know, it's pretty...
Is that the Hollywood documentary?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, look. All right, it's got a lot of bullshit in it, okay? You know, it's got a lot of shit at the beginning, like, Hollywood, Holly, the Druids. Television, tell, a, vision. Like, okay, get to the fucking substantiated shit, you know? But it goes more into the links between John Podesta and convicted pedophiles higher up in the Democratic Party, which gained more traction with the Pizzagate emails. And for example, this is an example of one of the emails. Hi, John. The realtor found a handkerchief with a map related to pizza on it. Is it yours? And he's like, yeah, thanks. Obviously, they're talking in code, and the QAnon interpretation is that it's related to pedophilia, and I don't think that's much of a jump. Right? Why are they talking in code in private emails anyway? That's a bit suspicious.
So you read these emails yourself. Can I ask when you were first made aware of them and when you first accessed them?
Well, look, I can't actually remember. Probably Alex Jones?
This is the raping of the West.
Yeah.
This is just
Yeah, probably Alex Jones is my in on this.
Is that info?
Oh, no, I don't watch InfoWars. I mean, that shit's fucking crazy. No. But he brings it up on Joe Rogan.
On his appearance on Joe Rogan?
Yeah. Yeah, probably Joe Rogan was my in on this. Yeah. Well, you know, I started getting into that when I started getting into, well, substances, shall we say? Well, you know, it's a subculture. You know, and conspiracy theories kind of go to an extent with the drug subculture. You know, there's very much an idea that there's a big corporate push to criminalize drugs.
Most people get involved through algorithms on social media, especially Facebook, because on Facebook you can watch a video and it'll have nothing to do with QAnon. It might be to do with politics. But it'll then recommend you anything that even slightly resembles something to do with politics. You're constantly getting new posts, videos, groups recommended to you. I remember seeing a lot of child trafficking ones at first. I'd watch videos, again, that had nothing to do with QAnon. They'd be taking a stance on the issue of child trafficking. But I'd watch them to see what they had to say, and then suddenly my feed would just be full of videos about child trafficking. I remember this one. It was by this guy called Isaac Cappy. And he basically convicted Tom Hanks of being a paedophile. I came across that video. I didn't search it up. I don't even know how it got there. But it was on my feed, and so I watched it.
When I see a lot of the Q stuff, it's mainly screenshots of articles, of text and an image, but not a source, and it's not coming from a newspaper.
You know, one of the most famous examples within QAnon is a screenshot taken from a French newspaper. I can't actually remember the name, but it basically reports that Macaulay Culkin, when he was working on Home Alone 2, was approached by a man wearing shoes made out of the skin of children.
My mum's always been on the fringe of internet culture. Very alternative. My grandparents raised her to be alternative thinking, I guess you could say. Being encouraged to think carefully about lifestyle, food, spirituality, that kind of thing. That's how I was raised as well. Being encouraged to think deeply about the way that you interact with the world. Part of that meant that my mum and grandma were very involved in certain online communities. Things to do with spiritualism and channeling. I don't know if you know what that is. It's people who believe that aliens or angels speak through them and explain truths and so on. Just fairly benign personal beliefs. It was a part of growing up. I was never told this is how you need to live or anything. It was just a thing. But recently, Mum got into, well, she's always been an internet savvy person. She's good with technology, and recently she got into cryptocurrency and started following all these people who talk about global conspiracies. And I hadn't connected it. I mean, I've known about QAnon for a while now, but I hadn't really linked the two together. Things like being suspicious of conventional science and eating organically kind of leads to more extreme beliefs about conspiracy theories. Well, it became most clear to me when I was last physically with her. She asked me to write out a word note on my phone, and she spelled out adrenochrome. She told me to look it up and do my own research, and I thought, shit. I hadn't expected it. I knew that she was super online, but she was fairly low-key about it. She also knows I don't want to talk about it because in the past we've clashed on politics. She is a fairly liberal person, but she has quite contradictory views. I guess I just hadn't realised how deep into this conspiracy theory stuff she'd gone.
When she spelt out adrenochrome, did you know what that meant?
When she spelled it out to me, I thought it sounded familiar and a bit dodgy. So I looked it up and fuck. My mum and I, we have a good relationship, but we live far apart and we don't see each other very often. I don't want to argue with her over the phone, so conversations like this tend to happen in person.
I don't know if they've taken it down now, but Movie Clips uploaded that scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. You know, the one with the adrenochrome? They take it, and then the comment section is just full of QAnon people being like, oh my god, this is what the elite do, this is what the celebrities do. It's all about finding the links. Disney is another example, actually. Finding examples of brainwashing within movies, especially Disney, because Disney films are aimed at kids. And suddenly you're watching these films that you watched as a kid, and you see it. You start to see these connections in everything.
It almost sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds almost like grooming.
You can find these people and they'll just present this kind of information so confidently. They'll be like, this is just the way it is, this is what's happening in the world. There's this one Twitter account actually, Praying Medic. He's toned down a load of his stuff now, but he's got something like 400,000 followers, right? And he will just straight up tell you that there's going to be a nuclear war, or the deep state is going to get you. And at least some people are going to see that and believe it, just because there are so many of them. And this isn't even just in America. I have seen loads trying to get other countries involved. Boris Johnson, apparently he's working for Trump. He definitely knows about it. He's going to do whatever he can to help Donald Trump. The royal family as well. Queen Elizabeth sacrificing children, as well as killing Diana. Yeah, it's really easy to link theories that already exist to QAnon.
Your average person, well, I don't think it's unfair of me to say that your average person might not believe, even if they have heard about these emails. Do you think there's a reason?
Interestingly, you know, this is something that makes me believe in it more, is the media's response to it. You know, if you go back and look at the media coverage after the guy goes and shoots up Comet Ping Pong, coverage is very much focused on how insane and crazy it is to believe this stuff. And I don't like that. You know, it sounds like to me like they have something to hide when they're claiming this monopoly on the truth, and they discourage people from viewing primary source material. You know, they're saying, well, in my opinion, they're saying that if you view this material, you're going to go shoot up a pizza restaurant. That's why you can't do it. We have to screen it through the news so you don't go or go crazy. You know, it's infantilizing. And I'm also a big fan of history. You know, if you go back and look at the media coverage of any kind of political scandal, if you go back in history, you'll see this. It's so incredibly biased. Like, since the Second World War, the CIA had this program called Operation Mockingbird, which was essentially to get Hollywood to agree to the CIA's nationalistic aim. They put anti-Nazi propaganda in Disney films, which I'm sure we can agree is a good thing. But the principle itself is dangerous. You know, there's this complicity between Hollywood, the CIA, and this program to use media as a method of controlling the perceptions of the public.
Many people have disagreements with their parents. I really don't agree with my dad on politics, but I have a sense that this is somehow different. Do you think that's true?
For me, because I don't want there to be direct conflict about it, I avoid him. Which means I'm hyper aware of it. I've had hundreds of perfectly reasonable, lovely interactions with her, where we just talk about life and everything's normal. But whenever the conversation edges towards that direction, I'm so aware of it, and I just want to avoid it. Like recently, I looked at her Facebook, and I don't think there's anything that bad, but it's clear that she's very active in the QAnon community. She wasn't just sharing things, she was making her own posts, multiple times a day. Posts that were clearly instructing her friends to go and research different topics. And she's mentioned Q drops.
Q drop 142. How did Soros replace Family Y? Who is Family Y? Trace the bloodlines of these three families. What happened during World War II?
How did Soros replace
Was Hitler
Family
a
Y?
puppet?
Who is Family Y?
Who was his
Trace the
handler?
bloodlines of these three
What was
families.
the purpose?
What happened during World War II?
What was the real
Was
purpose?
Hitler
How
a
did
puppet?
Soros
Who
replace
was his
family?
What age
handler?
was
Who is
GS?
What was the purpose?
Trace
What is the
the
Soros
bloodlines
family
of these
history?
families.
What age was
What
What's
GS?
occurred since
What
the
is the
fall of
Soros
Nazi
family?
How did
Germany?
Soros replace Family
What's
Who
Y?
is A.
Who is
Merkel?
Family
Germany?
Y?
What was
Who's
What
the
is
Hitler?
A. Merkel's
What is
family
A.
history?
Merkel's family history?
What happened
Follow
during
the
World War
What is
II?
Soros family
Was
history?
Hitler a
Who
puppet?
died
on the
Who was his
Titanic?
handler?
What
What
year
year
did
did Titanic
What
sink?
was the real?
Why is this
Why is this
relevant?
relevant?
What age?
What exactly?
What exactly
What is
happened
the
on the
Soros
Titanic?
What
What class
year
of
did the
people
What is
Class
that?
of people were
Why
guaranteed
Why is this
lifeboats.
Who
relevant?
is A.
Exactly.
Merkel?
Why is this relevant?
What is A. Merkel's
What class
family?
How do we
history?
know who was on the
How
lifeboat?
did
Who
they
died?
know
What
this?
time?
How do we know?
How are the names of bodies
Why
recorded
is
back
it
then?
How are the names?
What exactly?
When were the tickets
Who was
purchased for her
specific?
maiden
What class of
voyage?
people were guaranteed?
Who was
specifically invited?
What is the
Specifically
Fed?
invited.
How do you
Less
know
than
that?
10.
What is the Fed?
What is the Fed?
How are the names of
What does the Fed control?
When were tickets purchased?
Who controls the
Why did
Fed?
Hollywood
Why did
glorify
Hollywood
the Titanic?
The formation of the Fed.
What is the
Who lived in
Fed?
the movie?
Why did Hollywood glorify the
Why is
Titanic as a
this
tragic love story?
Opposite is true.
Who lived in the
What is
movie?
brainwashing?
What
Why
man?
is Hollywood
What is
glorifying
Why is
the
this
Titanic?
relevant?
What happened to
Opposite
Hindenburg?
is true.
What really happened?
What is
Why
brainwashing?
Who died?
What is a
during the
style?
accident?
What is brainwashing?
Why is this
happened to
relevant?
Hindenburg?
What is she?
What really
Who
happened to
controls the
Hindenburg?
narrative? Truth
Who
is
died during the
99%
accident?
of people in the
Why
world.
Why is this relevant?
It must be
What is
controlled.
What are she?
Snow White.
Who
I
controls
Eagle.
the narrative?
Who truth is that 99%
The truth is that 99% of
It
people
must
in
be
the
controlled.
hospital.
Snow
It must be
White,
controlled.
Iron Eagle,
Snow White,
Jason Bourne,
Iron Eagle,
CIA /
Jason
Dream,
Bourne,
Q.
CIA/Dream, Q.
I think it's the role of theatre to show these issues and to talk about them, and then hopefully to inspire other people to collectively come together and think about, okay, how can we solve this? What policies can we introduce and advocate for that have a material impact on people's lives, that mean that they don't feel like they have to be driven to these kind of radicalizing points of view, I guess.
How did you recover? What was the process? It must have been straining, emotionally, I mean.
It was really, really hard. I remember the first realization I had. I came across it accidentally. It was actually the Twitter account for QAnon Anonymous, the podcast. You've probably heard of them.
Yes.
Yeah, well, when I came across them, I thought that they were pro-QAnon. So I started listening to them, and I realized that they actually had a really good argument against it all. A lot of what Q had been saying was completely false. He'd made so many predictions, and none of them had come true. There'd been so many predictions, so many arrests. And I think in that moment it just sort of clicked. What if this person is just trolling us? What if they were having a laugh and they didn't realize how big it would get? So from that moment I just wanted to try. I mean, I didn't even think it would work, but I thought if I try and eradicate it from my life, I might get better. So I just started seeing less of it, slowly. Yeah.
How about your intimate relationship with your family? Have they recovered since you've gotten better?
Yeah, I think it was my mum. She's been a lot happier since seeing the slow changes. Because after getting into QAnon, you just kind of become a shell of the person you were. Like, I was always a really bubbly person, you know, like I was always really energetic, but it just drains you. God, yeah. QAnon completely drained me. But since reconnecting with my old life, I find I'm enjoying the things I used to enjoy. It's definitely a relief, especially to my mum, who I am incredibly close with. So she can see I'm getting better.
And presumably, you didn't realise the wider implications of adrenochrome and how it relates to the QAnon conspiracy.
Yeah. I knew it was extreme, but I didn't fully know. I still haven't spoken to her about it in person, so I don't know how much of it she believes. But the thought of her being one of those people in the same online communities, consuming the same ideas. She recently told me she was going to read a book about Scientology, just to see what it was about. And that's just so her. She's always been interested in these fringe ideas, and this sounds really horrible to say, but I always thought she had more common sense than to get into it. I still want to believe that, but then again, I look at her Facebook and I see posts that say things like, I don't believe in QAnon, but, and then she says something that Q has apparently said.
The parental relationship is really close, so one might think that you would have grown up with similar beliefs. Do you have any sense as to why this isn't the case?
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. There's a big theme in these kind of communities, and you see it a lot with QAnon, that one day soon, something big will happen. And it doesn't. Oh, it will happen next week, or next year. And then it doesn't happen. That was quite consistent in my life growing up, that one day something big would happen and everything would be different. I used to get really excited that something would happen and our whole lives would change. Like Bitcoin. Buying Bitcoin because the stock market is about to collapse, and that would make us very rich. I have a really vivid memory of her telling us that one day she would come and pick me up from school in a brand new car because somehow she would have got into a lot of money. But of course that didn't happen. And over time, I came to realise it never would.
What do you see the future of QAnon being, on a personal level and on a global level?
I think, personally, it's going to make me a lot more cautious in the future. I think it's toughened me up to other ideas. I feel like now that I've been through this, I'm not going to be so susceptible in the future to other conspiracies. But also on a global level. I mean, it's been around for a very long time. Even in the early 1900s, there was this book released called The Elders of Zion, and it basically promoted the idea that Jewish people were killing Christian children and drinking their blood. And that is really similar to QAnon. Yeah, it's been around for a long time, and it'll probably be around forever. It'll just evolve into something slightly different.
So you saw these initial claims of election fraud with the Dominion voting systems on Twitter. Then you yourself sought to investigate further.
Yeah.
If you're saying that the mainstream media is unreliable, can I ask where you get your news from? Social media?
No. Individuals. Individuals who I find trustworthy because they keep up or have been proven right so far. You know, people who don't straw man, like Tim Pool is a good example. Paul Joseph Watson, who I'm sure will get a few laughs, but he's a saner, slightly saner, British version of Alex Jones. Nigel Farage. Everybody laughed at him for the past 30 years, but he was on the money. No, he was reading the National Pulse. He understood the untapped frustration with the status quo. Look, I'll soak up the narrative from the mainstream media, and then I'll go to the individual pundits and see which influences me more. The onus is on the commentators to prove or disprove the media claim.
When you see people who disagree, who won't engage with, for example, the election fraud narrative, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like they're just blue-pilling themselves, you know? Like they want to live in a world where the media is trustworthy, where the institutions are trustworthy. And I also think a big part of it has to do with laziness. You know, it doesn't require work for you to just believe what the media tells you, to believe the narrative. No, but it takes time to do more research. And that's a big part of it. You know, it's not something you can put in a news article. It's such a vast paradigm with so many facets and links to it that it's not something you can do a 10-minute news segment about. You know, it's different sites to different links that show other links to other sites that show different individuals and money changing hands, and it's just such a huge set of information that some element of personal investigation is needed.
What do you think keeps her believing that something like this will actually happen?
I think she wants there to be more. She wants being here to be worth something.
She wants her life to be grander, or perhaps richer.
Richer, yes. Not richer in a...
Oh, not in a wealth sense, but in a spiritual sense.
Yeah, in a spiritual sense. More than anything. And I mean, I'm the same. I'm not religious or anything, but I definitely like the idea that there's something bigger, that there's a reason, you know?
The key is Epstein. So many reporters were aware of what he was doing, but they were never allowed to actually publish the stories. So that's where the idea of media's complicity in covering up pedophilia started for me.
But do you think that paedophilia, in this sense, is an emergent property of these people simply abusing their power? Because there are parts of QAnon that suggest it serves some kind of occult purpose.
Oh, yes. And I mean, being a Christian definitely influences that for me. You know, it's no secret that QAnon and Christianity just make sense together.
Say for example, a large movement rose up in the UK to do something about this. Would you see yourself joining in on any kind of direct action?
I think protests tend to be counterproductive and actually turn off the majority of society to your aims. You know, I think that's true of Extinction Rebellion. And, you know, Black Lives Matter. You know, initially there's a great deal of support, but the more protests impact everyday people's lives, the greater the sentiment against them tends to be. But I would probably vote for a QAnon candidate if one ran in an election. You know, most people who believe in QAnon tend to believe in things like small government, which align with my libertarian beliefs.
What do you think the future of this kind of worldview is? Is there a clear path forward, and do you have a sense as to what you might do and what the movement might do?
I think it all hinges on the election. You know, if Trump concedes, and there is no fraud proven, and he doesn't come out with some sort of massive expose with all the evidence he's amassed over a 4-year term, if he doesn't do that, then I think the movement will be over. But right now, people of Q are very excited. They're saying he knew the election had been stolen all along, and this is the final push. You know, he's going to release all the information. Clinton, Soros, it's all coming together. You know, I don't think he can climb down from this. You know, whatever happens, he has to continue down this rabbit hole.
Is part of your belief on this that Trump is actively fighting against this in secret?
Yes. I mean, I believe that more based on what he's done since he's been in office and the things he's tweeted. You know, he continually spread Q rhetoric, and when he was asked directly about Q, he refused to denounce it. He's done everything right in Q followers' eyes, which makes me believe that he knows more about it and is going to release something very big. And, you know, people trust him. because he's kept a lot of his promises. You know, he said he'd build the wall. He built the fucking wall. He said he'd move the embassy to Jerusalem, and he moved the fucking embassy to Jerusalem. He said he'd renegotiate NAFTA, and he fucking renegotiated NAFTA. You know, there's this track record that people trust in Trump's record, which makes me believe that there'll still be support.
Even if you research the specifics of her views, do you think she would change her mind if you were to speak to her about it?
I want to say yes, but I don't know. It could be wishful thinking. This community has been part of her life for such a long time. I feel like she would really have to be willing to listen. I think I could explain to her why she was wrong, but I don't know if that would stop her from getting into further conspiracies, because that's just who she is. Alternative food, alternative news, kind of everything. It always worried me, but I accepted it. It's only now that it's gotten more extreme. And social media hasn't helped. Without social media, I'm sure she would still search for these alternative ideas, but social media has really accelerated the hardcore QAnon content.
Facebook algorithms.
Facebook suggesting QAnon groups for you to join.
Before social media, you had to search for this content, but now the content searches for you.
Absolutely. And I think that lockdown played a part too. More uncertainty and more time on social media.
And this is her personal Facebook.
Yeah.
With her real name
Yeah.
and photos of her.
Yes.
I have one more question. Thank you so much for your time, by the way.
Thank you.
Do you see this going away? Now that
Trump has lost the election.
Yeah. Do you see that changing?
No, definitely not. No. I think because when QAnon started, he was the central figure. You know, like he knew everything. He knew all the answers. But as time's gone on, it's become a lot more independent. Like a lot of the ideas associated with QAnon now, for example, adrenochrome, Q's never pushed those ideas. He's never even mentioned them in one of his Q drops. And to me that suggests that this theory is so independent now that Trump could turn around tomorrow and say, it's false, I don't have anything to do with it, but people would still believe it. And I think it's the same with Q.
What about your own views on QAnon? How would they change if nothing happened after the election?
I think I'd still believe there's a global effort to monopolize control. It would just go more towards the corruption rather than the satanic pedophilia.
Would it cause you to evaluate any of the individuals who you consider reliable?
I might think that, you know, if an individual is wrong about this, then there might be other things that I agree with them on. You know, you won't always agree with whatever someone has to say.
How much traction do you see this getting amongst young people, online or in person? Even if, like you, they don't necessarily agree with the entirety of the theory, just some elements of it.
I think there's a lot of agreement around the corruption element, you know, specifically the scale of corruption, like 6 companies or whatever rule the world. I mean, inequality is increasing and the rich are getting richer. I think that's a point most young people can agree on, especially young people, because there are fuck all opportunities for young people right now. I mean, ownership is completely fucked. It's now a cliche that young people won't be able to afford houses and we're living paycheck to paycheck, and social media plays a huge part in this. You know, young people don't get the majority of their news from the mainstream media. No, they get it from influencers and celebrities and other people on social media. No media is reliable, so yes, I think it will continue this way.
When I went to sleep, Trump had the lead. How the hell we go from election day to election week? The pollsters got it wrong again, they must have been confused. But I tell y'all about shit myself when I turned on the morning news, 'cause they found pallets full of ballots at 3 a.m. all the way from Georgia to Michigan. They took the caps off of their Sharpies and they filled them fuckers in. Those pallets full of ballots all for Joe Biden. Well, ain't that sweet? He got just what he needs. They found just enough votes to get Sleepy Joe the lead. He said, come on man, oh won't you be a good sport? Donald Trump said, fuck that shit, I'll see your ass in court. Bring them pallets full of ballots at 3 a.m. all the way from Georgia to Michigan. They counted Arizona early, and the only way they'll win is those pallets full of ballots all for Joe Biden. Somebody better wake him up, Sleepy Joe is sleeping in. To tell the truth, I think he forgot he was running for president. But it don't matter, 'cause they found pallets full of ballots at 3 a.m. all the way from Arizona to Wisconsin. They want us to bend over so they can fuck us again. Those pallets full of ballots, that's the only way they'll win. Those pallets full of ballots, all for Joe Biden. God bless Donald J. Trump.
They're going to start mass testing in schools without parental consent. They can test your kid without your consent. My kids are not going back to school.
I started to visit a friend of mine a few hours away and eventually began a relationship with him that sort of took me away from it all. It wasn't that I stopped looking at all the usual conspiracy sites, it's just that I wasn't focusing on it and talking about it every day.
Boris Johnson is a paedophile. Say it again. Boris Johnson is a paedophile! He is a paedophile and a child-torturing piece of shit. Him and his fucking wife, they get off on it.
For most of my life, I've learned it was best not to talk about religion or politics to people.
It's more torture than rape, but they do rape them as well.
I'm used to having drastically different worldviews compared to most of the people in my life.
Philip Schofield is a paedophile. Simple as. Philip Schofield from Good Morning Britain is a paedophile.
I can understand that we see the world differently. It doesn't bother me until it starts to hurt the people around me. I have a big issue with any belief that demonises people based on race or gender, sexuality.
And I've got proof.
I have an issue with ignoring the pandemic just because some random people on the internet said that it was bad.
Brought in by Tony Blair when he was Prime Minister. I can tell you when.
There's
I've got the exact fucking date written down here.
That comes with crawling out of the rabbit hole while loved ones are left behind. My mum says that she's worried about
Was
me.
it 1983?
Laughed
no,
when I said that I'd been fact-checking
and
and
convicted, assaulting boys
said she
in
was
public
willing to
toilets.
die for her
Oh yeah,
beliefs.
I've got it all.
I'd love to say that an open conversation
How
would
would I
work,
know?
but
Because
I tried that and it
well,
went
I can't actually
nowhere.
use that here, but if you go on Anton's page on his profile, he's got a list of names there.
I know how easy it is to get pulled in. The feeling is almost... There's an almost sickening satisfaction that comes with thinking that the world is completely fucked and that somehow many other people are completely blind to it.
You don't need politics. You just need one independent party to run a country. You need a leader. Every country needs a leader. One independent, good-hearted leader who's going to fight for your rights and the rights of your children. Let the people speak. Voting is bullshit. It's pointless because it won't actually affect anything. People will go into their booths and they'll fill out their ballots and they genuinely believe that that's going to change something. But that ballot is not fucking counted. It's bullshit. We've seen it with Biden.
I've
The
seen
whole of America is
a
pro-Trump,
lot of
really.
changes in my
Well,
parents,
that's like a small minority that's
especially
pro-Biden.
my mum.
But they're just paedophile protectors.
These days she's depressed, paranoid, constantly angry. There's a lot of hatred that wasn't there before.
Do you remember when there was that vote for David Cameron to become Prime Minister? And then a few days before the election, those photos were leaked of him fucking the head of a dead pig. You're telling me people voted for that? No! And yet
Both
he
my
still
parents and
became
I are
Prime Minister.
university graduates.
He fucked the head of a dead pig and he still became
Sometimes
Prime Minister. It
I
just
struggle
doesn't
to
make
keep
any
my mouth
sense.
shut because I can see how much this is affecting their mental health. Ooh, you know, something big is going to happen in the next few days, but it never fucking
Oh, it's
happens.
because all sorts. Even by my own fucking daughter, and she's 12. Think I lost the plot, don't you? Think I've got a bit psycho? What about the facts that I've got? What about the members of Parliament who are paedophiles? Does that make me a psycho? Or does that make them dirty?
A few days, they quickly turn into weeks and still nothing happens.
I like your hair, yes, and
And then the cycle just starts all over again. My mum actually called a few hours
Oh,
ago.
you want to show them your hair? Okay, we'll put something over your
Pandemic
face.
and
Just
COVID
to show you my
vaccines
hair,
were brought up.
like a 12-year-old.
I knew as soon as she brought them up that a disagreement was coming.
Well, that's kids for you. Your hair is beautiful. See, this
told
is
me
why I
about
don't
this
watch the news.
Documentary that she'd been watching.
And of course, Facebook is now
All the things
stopping the
she
spreading of the
learned.
message. Mark Zuckerberg is the biggest paedophile going. Oh yeah, we've got a lot of research.
Conversation went downhill.
In the first place. He's
Something
very
in her
excited,
voice.
like Governor Newsom and others when talk about sex trafficking in children.
She thinks that I'm the one who's lost and brainwashed.
Look at Brian Stelter.
Honestly,
Dancing
it's
on
difficult to put into words how much that hurts.
Mark Zuckerberg, you are one dirty, horrible, paedophile, motherfucking cunt! Sorry, like my language, fucking is.
Since I pulled
But we
myself
can.
out of
It's all
the
connected.
conspiracy
On
hole,
Epstein's
my
Island.
mental
Totally
health
hands on
has
Epstein's
drastically
Island.
improved.
Just connect the dots.
I'm
Connect
not afraid
the dots.
every day of
The
my
children who
life
have
about
died
some
give me
evil
the
plot
strength
that's somehow going to
fight
destroy us all.
Flashbacks.
And the UN's
I don't
biggest
want to go
business
so
back.
depressed.
That's dark.
Look it
Okay.
up. They're
I could barely
famous for
function.
it.
But now,
Kids
I'm
are getting
happier.
tortured as we speak.
healthier than
They're
I was
getting raped
before.
as we speak. They are getting limbs ripped off right now. They are getting organs ripped out
Through
without
years of
anesthetic.
battling chronic depression and
Keep
anxiety.
fighting the fight. I don't want anything from anyone. I just want to save those kids.
I could talk to her about anything. But now that I'm happier than I have been in years, she pities me. All because of an anonymous poster named Q.
I think we can't underestimate the mental health implications and for causes as well. I mean, one thing that this pandemic has really exposed is the utterly inadequate mental health support that people across the world, and especially in this country, in the UK, have. And I know it's the case in America as well, big time. There is a mental health crisis, both over in the UK and the US, and I really think that until there is like significant progress made to address that, again, these kinds of conspiracies are going to continue to spread.
What are your emotions towards your mum at this point?
It's hard. On the one hand, I feel the same as I always have done. She's my mum, and I love her so much. When I was younger, I didn't want anyone to view my mum negatively. Anything weird, I just kept to myself. But it's been getting worse, and that's why I decided to talk to Harry about it. About this project. Even if it means that people will have a view of my mum that I would really rather they didn't have. It's hard because I want people to view my mum as this really kind and wonderful person who's funny and weird and a bit intense, but amazing and just amazing to talk to. But at the same time, knowing that she believes these horrible things, I hate the feeling that people will know that she believes this fucking rubbish. It's difficult to deal with, honestly.
And that's why you don't engage on Facebook as well. Presumably, if you have friends and family on there, you see it also.
This is the other problem. The way she does it is palatable enough for people who we know are friends and family to engage with it in a really positive way. They say, that's really interesting, and that scares me. Because I see these ideas as really horrible, insidious, and just really rather negative. It's disgusting, but I don't feel angry. I just feel sad. I think it's like a kind of grief.
Kind of loss.
Yeah.
Do you need a couple of minutes?
It's okay. I'm fine. It's just hard.
Looking forward, how do you think you would react if you saw someone such as a partner getting into a similar conspiracy in the future?
I hope that I'd see the warning signs before it's too late to intervene. Be more aware. I think I find it easier now to see when someone is saying one thing but really means something else.
Like a defense mechanism you develop.
It feels like it.
It sounds really tiring.
It really is.
Do you think she would be happy if you began to believe?
Definitely, absolutely. That would be the ideal for her, I think.
It would be reaffirming.
In part. But I think more than anything, it's because she truly believes in the danger of it all. So, the fact that I don't acknowledge that danger, that I don't think it will have the same impact that she thinks it will, I think that's stressful for her. She hates suffering, so I'm sure the idea of people, of children, being hurt by some deep state paedophile ring would really upset her.
If someone in a similar position came to you for advice, do you have any sense of what you might say?
It's hard. Talk to them about it. Try to understand why they feel it's so important to know. That's where I'd start. I'd ask, what about this rings so true to you, and how can I convince you otherwise?
Is there anything... You're actually our last interview. Do you have any hopes about the way we portray the issues in this project? Is there anything you want to say, or anything you think we should say or do?
I appreciate that you're presenting it in a neutral way. That's what Harry said when we spoke earlier, that you're not condemning the people who believe this wholesale. Hopefully it will be presented as a discussion that makes people question why. Yeah.
All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace by Richard Brautigan. I like to think, and the sooner the better, of a cybernetic meadow where mammals and computers live together in mutually programming harmony, like pure water touching clear sky. I like to think, right now, please, of a cybernetic forest filled with pines and electronics, where deer stroll peacefully past computers as if they were flowers with spinning blossoms. I like to think it has to be of a cybernetic ecology We are free of our labours and joined back to nature, returned to our mammal brothers and sisters, and all watched over by machines of loving grace.